As you guys probably know, Kero has declared that he's quote-unquote joining the fandom and whatnot. But to be honest, I'm not really surprised by the situation. To be frank, the only reason he's surviving in any way is due to his cult of personality. Sure, he may be under fire by the most influential people in the community, but he has a place to retreat to with his most dedicated fans. As I said in my first video, his status basically allows him to shield himself from any criticism. If he was a nobody like us and he had the same notoriety, he wouldn't be able to censor this information to a large portion of the population. If you don't know what I mean by this, people just tend to believe the first thing that they hear. And when they encounter information contrary to that, they're less likely to change their opinion. To highlight this, if you've watched his coming back video, in isolation the information may seem legitimate, but if you actually look at the situation holistically, he leaves out a lot of points. For instance, the only reason why he didn't go to jail was due to the evidence on hand being 2 years old. So even though he committed the serious crime, he got away with it anyway due to minor technicalities. So regardless of if he's guilty or not according to local laws, this says nothing about him being innocent of the problem at hand. I can go on and on about this, but I'm sure that other creators have already covered this, so it's a little redundant. So while his die-hard fans may see this situation and think to themselves, oh, with this limited amount of information, he must be right. And of course they're not going to look at any other perspectives in the community. As far as they're concerned, it's an us versus them situation. And the second pillar to this cult of personality is the parasocial relationship. Although his audience may feel like they have a personal relationship with him talking to them quote-unquote directly and whatnot, the same personal relationship isn't reciprocated in any way. So while an audience member may feel like he's a personal friend of his, as far as Kero is concerned, they're a stranger. So to put it simply, he doesn't really give a damn about his minions. So at the end of the day, Kero's audience is basically just a resource for him to use in his own agenda. And sadly, he's basically wormed his way into an entire generation of furries. And this sort of goes into another point I wanted to make. Kero's been basically able to indoctrinate, 100k people for, 4 years or so? Even if someone brings good evidence, or if they bring a good point against Kero the Wolf, as far as his die-hard fans are concerned, it's irrelevant, since you're competing against years of a parasocial relationship. So as far as Kero the Wolf's die-hard followers are concerned, his word might as well be evidence in itself. So since Kero the Wolf has so much power over a large amount of people, I'm not surprised that he has the gall to come back to the community. Just to highlight this point, if you didn't already know, he had a Patreon up during the time he was away from the community. So his minions were basically so dedicated to him that they would literally pay him money every month just to see his mundane content. And to be honest, I know he was thinking that he was going to get away with it. If he knew that this would blow up in his face, he wouldn't even attempt to quote-unquote join the community again. But to be honest, from his perspective, this may actually make sense, just from his experience as a poppy fur. He just bides his time to the point where there's a sort of social half-life. He avoids the worst of his controversy, yet he comes back early enough to the point where he's still socially relevant. And I'm sure he, out of all people, knows how public discourse is conducted in the community. Since he has status, he's assuming that he can get away with anything. But there's one element of the situation that Kero the Wolf fails to realize. When he usually had these conflicts, it was usually against someone who's less important than him, or has less of a following than him, so he's used to fighting these easier battles. It's easy to bully someone into submission if you have a larger audience, but that wouldn't really be the case if the opposition had more social capital. So the ironic thing is he gets to have a taste of his own medicine. He comes into the situation assuming that he'll be forgiven in every way due to his privileged position in the past. But instead he gets to experience what he inflicted on us peasants. So finally, this guy is probably going to get kicked off of his pedestal and see how it's like to be one of us peasants with virtually zero social resources. Obviously this kind of thing wouldn't happen immediately, but over time, I'm guessing that's the case. And no, I don't have empathy for this guy at all. Aside from the entire zoophilia situation, he literally tried to mobilize a sizable portion of the community just to save his own skin. So what, his side basically sacrifices millions of hours in this drama crap well, he's pretty much the only one who stands to gain from this situation. And again, this just reiterates the fact that Kero the Wolf's fanbase isn't even something he cares about, it's just a resource for him to use. They're so disposable to him that he'll literally get into these conflicts and make them basically die on a hill for him. And again, if Kero the Wolf had so little empathy and respect for the animals he abused, what makes you think he'll be honest with you?